It's freezing out here in this shed first thing this morning. Pretty cold. I think it's 34 degrees this morning as I begin this, and it's 6:30 in the morning. Sunday, December the 18th. My wife's getting induced today, and there's a good potential my son's going to be born today. His birthday could potentially be December the 18th. Absolutely insane to think about that, and insane to think about the fact of everything that's transpired in an effort for us to get to this point. My wife to be a mother, me to be a father. And I know that this is going to be absolutely life-changing. And I can't wait. I really can't. I'm grateful to be back here on After Prison Show and to be able to share that amongst so much other stuff with all of you. I can't emphasize enough that I've got huge plans coming back. This is my third video since returning, and well, I'm still talking about what we're going to do. Joe, when are we going to get to what we're doing? We're almost there, I promise. My timing is usually quite impeccable. That's going to be kind of a theme in this video today. And, hindsight being 2020, I probably should have waited till after my son was born to return to After Prison Show so that I really could put forth everything that I want to put forth towards this return. But trust when I tell you, it's coming. Since thinking about returning and then doing so, I've had a boatload of ideas of what I want to do. This masterclass idea, basically giving the game away for free to anybody coming home from prison, how to create their very own social media existence. Lessons that I had to learn along the way. Take it from my mistakes. Do it better for yourself. And I hope you find success doing so. That's, one thing that I want to do. I also want to do some tell-alls, and trust there's some things that I want to tell all about. I want to do some updates, all what I've already mentioned. But I think something else that I'm going to do is I'm going to listen. And that's something that I haven't done very well in the past. I haven't listened. I should have listened and listened to all of you. One thing that rings true so many times throughout the comments section, Joe, prison stories. Well, that will certainly be a part of this. Not me. I really don't have any prison stories to share, but I will be like the Ryan Seacrest or the Simon Cowell of this, sort of like a casting director, trying to find people who have stories they want to share and then putting them together in a compelling way, introducing them to the world like I've done in the past, except sort of at arm's distance. And I think a perfect example of that actually going right in the past here on After Prison Show, which in the past here on After Prison Show, for the most part, it went wrong. But in one particular case where it actually did go right was with Banky. I was able to introduce Banky here on After Prison Show, and then Banky started his own thing. And look at him now. Joe, what do you think about the fact that Banky is huge now and seeming to be doing really well? Well, I'll actually do a video on that very soon. My true feelings on what I think of Banky's success. And spoiler alert, I'm just proud. I'm proud to see how far this guy has come, and that is awesome to see. But we'll make a whole video of that soon. If I could do more like that, that would be great. And hopefully I will be able to do so. But anyways, that's not what none of this is about here today, what I'm sharing with you. What I want to share with you is the title of this video, What Happened to the Podcast? Yeah, that podcast. Which one, actually? Because as of late, there had been, most recently, there had been two. The podcast that I was doing with Banky, as a matter of fact, and also the latest and last thing that I did here on After Prison Show, what certainly seemed like the absolute last-ditch effort at least at the time, to try to revitalize and revive After Prison Show, the podcast that I was doing with Dave. Joe, what happened to that podcast? Well, I'll share about both of them. And in both cases, I guess it was just the impeccable timing being part of it, and also maybe even probably a lot of, me getting to that point where I was feeling like After Prison Show was over. But let me first start with the podcast with Banky, which I felt like was killer. I mean, this thing was awesome. The episodes that we were able to do together, every single one of them was a banger. And damn, I should have never let that go. That thing had some real potential and some real legs. But like so many times in life, I tend to not really get it right, and I tend to be wrapped up in other things, and I can't, devote my full attention to the things that I probably should. See, back during the time that I was doing the podcast with Banky, I was also knee-deep in flipping houses and basically exerting every dollar that I had toward that. So, it really basically had me by the balls that I had to focus all of my efforts on getting these houses done, or whatever house that I was working on during the time. I think it was actually flip number 3. Had to get that house done. I had everything tied up in that house, and I couldn't put forth the effort and energy that I wanted in the podcast with Banky. Now, there was some other things going on. Oh, Joe, how hard is it to just sit down and film a podcast? Well, let's be honest here. There were a number of other factors that played into this. See, the podcast with Banky was long after Cody was no longer a part of After Prison Show. And, part of the reason why Cody was no longer a part of After Prison Show was because of the fact that, over the course of years, this thing started to dwindle away. The success and the money that this thing was generating was starting to dwindle away to the point where I couldn't even afford Cody anymore. And when I lost Cody, in part because of the fact, and it was a major part, because of the fact that I could no longer afford him, that was a major gut punch. Because it was then that I realized this thing probably doesn't got much longer. After Cody, I would try to bring on somebody else to help me with these videos, a guy by the name of Joelle. I could hardly afford this guy, and it was a great help having him help me with these videos. And I mean, even when Joelle was a part of this, him and I were doing some really great things. The prison role play, the GTA gameplay that we were doing, that was a really great thing that we had done together, and I was super pumped about that. But of course, that didn't last because Joelle would not last neither. Not only were we doing the gameplay together, but we were also doing the podcast. Joelle was a huge help to me being able to do the podcast, running the cameras, making sure that everything was recording, monitoring audio levels, helping to frame shots, like put this stuff together, break the stuff down. It was a lot to do these podcasts, actually. Not to mention, try to get people to be on the podcast, find times that work for everybody, find a location to be able to film the podcast. Like, there was a lot that really went into that. So eventually, with the podcast I was doing with Banky, I just had to say, hey, look, I can't focus on this right now. Like, I got to do this house. I got to finish this house. And who knows, maybe in the future we can get back with that. But, that was then and this is now. So what happened with that podcast? Timing. And then I lost Joelle, which was another gut punch. We did the gameplay together. He helped me with the podcast. And also I was starting to create the channel for Booker. But I really was spreading myself way too thin, trying to do way too much. And I think it burnt me out real quick. Like, holy shit, I just can't do all of these things. Wish I could have. Can't keep all of these things up. I really wish I could have. And, because of that, they didn't last that long. All of those ideas, the podcast with Banky, Booker's channel, the prison gameplay, all 3 of those ideas would have absolutely revitalized and brought After Prison Show back from the dead for real. They were all just what After Prison Show needed. But the timing couldn't have been worse. And I was trying to do way too much. And even with the help of Joelle, which again would not last that long, I guess it still wasn't enough help or something to really be able to manage all of that. So fast forward, it was back in July of this year, 2022. I didn't realize it had been that long. It had been almost 6 months, 5 months or something, since the latest and last ditch effort, truly, at that time, to try to do something fresh here on After Prison Show. The After Prison Show, after the After Show's After Show podcast featuring Dave. And just like all of these other ideas that I've mentioned in this video, this could have been the ticket. But timing, timing is everything. And I don't know why, I thought about this idea to do this and, talked with Dave about creating this podcast right at the same time that I was just beginning the painting business. And see, a lot of you here on After Prison Show don't know much about this painting business. And trust me, it is all documented over on Joe Does Stuff. I hate to plug my other YouTube channel, but if you find any interest in just how chaotic this whole thing has been to get it to the point where it's at right now, which is at a pretty damn good point, being successful somewhat and being somewhat self-sufficient, man, the beginning most certainly was the farthest thing from all of that. First starting this business, the long list of characters and people that I brought in trying to put to work that just didn't work. I probably went through like 30 people in, the 5 or 6 months that the painting business has been operational for. For some reason, I thought it was 7 months. Maybe it was in the 7th month of the year that I created the painting business. It was all during this time that I thought about the podcast. And, the reason that this thing even came about was because, Dave was actually painting with me with the painting business. He was a painter. And just like with the podcast, that would be short-lived. There were a number of factors that played into why Dave would not continue painting, and it was just mainly because that's not what he wanted to do. Couldn't be mad at that. If you don't want to paint, you don't want to paint. He had other things that he wanted to do. But I truly feel like he did want to do the podcast. And for the 3 episodes that we did, I believe it was 3. All 3 of those episodes I felt were really, really good. And I'll never forget, like pretty much everything else, how chaotic it was trying to maintain this painting business that at this point was a complete fucking dumpster fire, while also trying to do the podcast with Dave. There was a guy, and there was a guy that came along. He had just come home from prison. He had did 8 years. I told him about After Prison Show, and he told me basically he wanted to be a star of the internet. That's what he wanted to do. He didn't want to paint. He wanted to be a star of the internet, but he was painting. He didn't know a damn thing about painting. And I hate to say this dude was, kind of an annoying guy. I'll never forget, we would be on the job and I've got a multitude of different people working, black people, white people, females, males. And, here's this dude, nice enough fella. He's like talking and talking and talking. He's just so excited about everything. And, it's almost like a kid in a toy store seeing a guy like this who just came home. As refreshing as it is to see something like that, and to try to feel good about giving this guy an opportunity to work, it was annoying as hell because this dude would just talk way too much. It would interfere with work getting done to the point where, things are getting missed or overlooked, or we're not doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. And I'm telling him, hey, look, you barely even know how to paint anyway. You really don't know how to paint. I'm trying to teach him how to paint, but he's just not paying attention because he's talking so much. And I remember this one thing. I talk about this still. I actually make a joke about it. He would say, hey, y'all cool with some music? And everybody would be like, yeah, sure. You can put some music on. And I was coming down the hall one day. I had to go check on another apartment getting painted. And all I could hear was this muffled rage. I thought somebody was arguing inside the apartment. So when I opened the door, it was like this death metal shit this dude had playing and blasting. And I was like, yo, man, Nah, you gotta put some headphones in or some earbuds or something, man, because not everybody's gonna want to hear what you're listening to, and certainly not everybody's gonna want to hear what you're saying. Needless to say, that guy would end up going a different way. He was actually, he considered himself a drywall specialist, and he was older too. He was like, yeah, I could tote 4 boards and all. So I think that he got in with some drywall work. I don't necessarily know. I actually looked him up this morning, as a matter of fact. I was reminded of him because I figured his name was going to come up in this video. And he's deactivated his Facebook, so hopefully he's doing okay. Chances are, though, that's probably 50-50. But getting back to the whole podcast with Dave, this guy is important to the story because, Dave was actually giving this guy a ride to work. And, Dave was sitting there trying to talk with this guy and give him some insightful stuff. And I don't know. I think that the painting business put a lot of pressure on Dave. It's like, hey, can you go pick this dude up? Whatever. And Dave, he's got his kids. He's got, his own responsibilities. So, this extra stuff, I think, was in the way for him. But, one of the very last conversations that Dave and I would have, he was like, hey, what are we going to do about this podcast? Like the painting business is super hectic right now. Dave's at the point where, he doesn't even want to paint anymore with me, and that's fine. And he's like, what do you want to do about the podcast? And I'm like, man, fuck that podcast. I hate to say it like that, but that's exactly what I said, man. Fuck that podcast. I cannot think about that right this second. Because just like with flip number 3, when I was trying to do the podcast with Banky, I've got way too much money getting tied up in this painting business. And it was this painting business that I was believing in that was going to be my thing that I was going to absolutely have to do. Because After Prison Show was done. And sadly enough, just like the podcast with Banky, just like the Prison RP roleplay game, just like Booker's channel, the podcast with Dave was sacrificed and given up on. And I also want to throw this in here as well. I'm not sitting here trying to make a bunch of excuses for these things. The short of it is I gave up on all of these things. So, whether it was bad timing or money or a flip house or a painting, like, I'm not trying to make excuses for these things. This is legitimately why all of these things ceased to exist. But one of the bigger things that I think about is the fact that I had lost my confidence in being able to create. I had lost my confidence in the ability to successfully manage this greatest thing that I had ever accomplished in my life. Still is the greatest thing that I've ever accomplished in my life. This YouTube channel, After Prison Show. Like I had mentioned in the last video why I quit After Prison Show, I became self-conscious. I questioned everything. I did not believe that I could do it. And I was burnt out on all of the drama, all of the little sneak disses and attacks and people trying to, come at me in an effort to try to get their name established, whatever the case may be. Like at this point, I kind of, I get it. It is what it is. That is just a tactic that comes along with this. You're either going to collaborate with people or you're going to beef with them in an effort to try to, get your thing out there, maybe. But there was a point that I was trying to mention here. I guess this really applies to Banky as well, and also Dave, in both regards, the podcast, and in both regards, anything that I was doing with either of them in video. Not only was my confidence lacking, my questionability severe, but I was also feeling like, I might as well, or I'm better off stopping while I'm ahead and before something does go wrong. Because not even up until, forever, with everybody, something always went wrong. And Joe, that's because of you. I've heard that. And again, I won't deny that. I'll wear that. I'll eat that humble pie. But I want to share one final thing in conclusion as I wrap this up. And this is going to be a masterclass lesson. So if you're out there thinking about creating your own thing, you've already created your own thing, you got your prison YouTube or your TikTok, and you're seeing some things that I've done in the past that have worked, and you're thinking about going out there and, having people on your channel and your platform, I want to share a lesson with you that I learned. Whoever you feature on your thing, you need to keep that at arm's distance. That is somebody you are featuring. That is somebody who is not becoming a part of your thing. You need to keep your thing separate from anybody that you introduce on your thing. And introduce that person either for them to be able to share their story and keep it moving, or for them to be able to share their story and work on their thing. Because when the line begins to get blurred between your thing becoming their thing, that's when some confusion can begin. And that's when some drama can certainly come. And, I think as I share that with you, I think to myself, well, damn, I did that with Banky. Banky created his thing and he's doing great now. I did that with Danny. Actually, I didn't do that with Danny, and that's probably why that went so bad. But I did that with Dave. But I didn't do it with Dave until way too late. I should have did it with Dave from the beginning. I should have did it with Yanni from the beginning. I should have did it with Jellicoe from the beginning. Like Rabbit from the beginning. Like, hey, here's these people. They're cool. I know these people. They're good folks. And they're going to create their own thing. And you should check them out. If you're going to feature people, you either feature people to feature them and then keep it moving, maybe do an update later down the road. Don't feature them every single day, because if you do so, that line is going to get blurred. Joe, you didn't build this. This success of After Prison Show isn't because it's because of Danny. It's easy to see how that can be thought, or anybody else. I just wanted to share that first lesson with y'all. Trust me, I got a lot of lessons. Take it from me. I should know. I fucked this thing up numerous times. And I'm back again, hat in hand, asking y'all to give me one more chance. Rock with me here. I got some plans. They're a little jumbled right this second, but they're going to come together, especially after my son's born and I'm a father in like 12 hours. At least that's when my wife's going to go get induced. Whew. That was a lot. Not only is, this little masterclass thing something that I hope people will take heed to use for their own thing, it's also something that I have to look in the mirror and say to myself as well, hey, look, Joe, these are some reasons why things didn't work in the past, and these are some things that you really ought to improve upon. And I hope that I'm able to do that. I wanted to share all of this with you guys. I cannot thank you enough for still continuing to rock with me. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. It was so motivational and so uplifting. And this person said to me, they said, Joe, look at these videos since you've returned. Look at what these people are saying to you. They still rock with you. And that made me smile. I mean, it really did. It filled me with a sense of purpose, a renewed sense of inspiration to get back on here and kick ass and take names. And damn it, that's what I'm going to do. You want the stories? I'm going to listen. I'm going to give you what you want. And I'm going to try to tone down the things that don't work. I know that's kind of a contradiction, quite a big contradiction to what I mentioned in the first video, talking about I'm going to get back up here and I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. Well, I've done that for a long time, and that really just don't work. A lot of times in life, it's not about doing exactly what you want. It's about doing what works best and capitalizing on that. So here we are, back again with a new chapter. And I can't thank y'all enough for still sticking with me and tuning in to see what I've got in store. Trust me, it's going to be a whole lot more. Bars. Hey, look, that's it. I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about this. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world, never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace! I just want to fade back into the darkness